Hi there. Welcome to another conversation on Life is All About Choices. Today, my special guest is Sara, and you want to stick with us because we are going to share some information about going after that thing that you want to do, be, or have, why you're not getting it. Maybe you're trying too hard. Maybe you could try easier. So stay tuned and follow the conversation. Sara, welcome.
Thank you, Nancy, so much for having me.
Sara, please tell everyone who you are, what you do, and why you're so fabulous.
How many days do we have?
I love it. See, I have the most amazing friends. I love it.
Just kidding, all seriousness aside. Where do I start? Well, as you can hear my accent, I have this sexy European accent because that's where I grew up. Spent my first 20 years in a small medieval town of 20,000. And then basketball brought me to New York City. I barely spoke any English. I was like, wow. And I didn't realize that was actually the exact manifestation of my desires that I had. I was just too ashamed to admit it. Fast forward to today, I'm a mom to two globetrotting crystal children, a wife to an amazing husband, a business owner, and a mentor to those powerhouses out there that we see. We recognize a lot of their names who, on the outside, they seemingly have it all. But when we are behind the closed doors and the guards and masks come off, they're just like all of us in ways really exhausted, feeling overwhelmed, uninspired by doing things that used to light them up.
Yes.
So what we do and what I help them do is not only think and dream and play bigger, but reignite those sparkles in their eyes and turn the world into the playground.
Well, then I am talking to the right person today because as I shared before we went online with this, before we went live, is I woke up this morning with this amazing knowing. And it was like this outer body experience where I felt like I was on the outside watching myself sitting there in meditation, and I felt at peace and so blessed and happy and calm and peaceful. And I thought, I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Sara today because she gets all this and this is going to be amazing. So I'm so glad you're here.
There's no such thing as coincidences. It's only the right timing, right?
Amen, sister. Amen. You got that right. So, Sara, when you and I were talking last week, and we were discussing about what we wanted to talk about today, I think first of all, let's start with the phrase, the title, life coach. Let's start there.
Okay.
What does that mean to you?
Life coach. I actually never thought about that because I never saw myself as a life coach. But when I think about those people who are out there, who are helping people gain clarity, strategize about their living, overcome diversities, find themselves, embody the higher version of themselves, all of that, I believe, is a part of being a life coach. Somebody who is on this journey with you, the journey that has no manuals, there's no directions. Any answer is the right answer until it isn't. So when I think about a life coach, it's somebody who might have walked the path that you desire to walk, might have overcome the obstacles that you're facing, and might be able to show you some shortcuts. And not just from the strategic standpoint, but also the inner game. Because oftentimes what happens is that we are our own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
We are the ones who are holding ourselves back. We are the ones who are depriving ourselves from going after those dreams.
Yeah.
So sometimes we just need somebody who believes in us more than we have the capacity to believe in ourselves. Somebody to hold us accountable. And I don't mean accountable like you said you're going to do 35 push-ups and you only did 34.
Right.
But to remind us why certain things are so important to us, to remind us of what our values are when we want to detour and go after the next shiny object out there. And somebody who holds a space for us when we fall apart, when everything else around us falls apart. So
that's a beautiful description. And last week when we were talking, we discussed a little bit about this and how people look to other people to fix them, you know, to like, there's something wrong with me, so I want to work with you. I want you to fix me. And we think it's, you and I both discussed that we thought it was really important to share today how we're not broken. There's nothing wrong with us. And the answers that most people are seeking from the outside, meaning you're going to a person and looking for that person to give you the answers or that person to fulfill you. Like, oh, if I find the perfect date or the perfect spouse or the perfect, I don't know, guy to be with and hang out or girl to be with and hang out, then I'll feel fulfilled. Then I'll feel worthy. And so we have so many people who have a belief around finding their worthiness or their happiness from the outside in. And I'd really love to talk about that today. What do you think?
I love the topic.
Oh.
In fact, I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday on the topic, not just looking for the directions and confirmation from the outside and the answers, but also, and this might be more relevant in this Western society and the culture of status symbols, where the stress is the badge of honor.
Yeah.
I'm finding that a lot of times it gets mistaken when we think about luxury, right? And we strive to create luxury and status symbols in our lives to prove our worthiness, to fill the void, to climb this social ladder, so to speak, as opposed to seeing it from the other perspective of saying, you know what, my soul desires this expansion. Yeah. I feel great and inspired when I'm in those spaces and those places surrounded by those people who are not talking about shallow weather conversations. I personally, I'm incapable of small talk. We go deep, like immediately.
Yes.
But, you know, not to mistaken that what we're talking about, it's nothing wrong by wanting to have external stuff around you, but for the right reasons.
Right. You know, it's funny when you said that you go deep right away. I have had people accuse me of being sometimes exhausting to be around because a conversation would be like, well, now that you brought it up, you know, and then we just keep going. But yeah, you know, it's so interesting what I was thinking this morning before we had this conversation that, you know, there are many, many, many people out there sharing, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. You have, you know, like the Rachel Hollises and the Brene Browns and the, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, it's slipping my mind right now. Eat, Pray, Love, the author of Eat, Pray, Love.
Elizabeth Gilbert.
Thank you. Oh, it was just going right out of my head. And all of these beautiful women are sharing a message about everything that you're looking for, everything that you're searching for can be found inside of you. I mean, even on The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy Gale at the end, she knew the next time I go looking for my heart's desire, I don't have to search any farther than my own backyard. And this is why it's so important that we start understanding how to live our life from the inside out. And like you were talking about that expansion, and that's a good way to explain how I was feeling this morning in my meditation. It was an expansion of me, like it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And it was an expansion of gratefulness and gratitude and happiness. And I think when you were talking about people who are looking for the material things or the outside things to bring them that happiness, you know, there are a lot of people who will go out and buy something thinking that will make them happy. And yes, it makes you happy right now or when you bought it, but then there's buyer's remorse, maybe because you shouldn't have spent the money or because you bought it and it didn't bring you the happiness that you were looking for. So this is the opportunity to go within and find that happiness. What would be your suggestion if someone's on that search right now. Like, but how do you do that?
Oh my goodness. I honestly can tell you that I was not really open to those conversations until I absolutely had to be. When I started my business 8 years ago, I had clients who were, in my mind at the time, in this woo world. And I was still very much in these athletics, international athlete award winning scholar doer person. My worth is equal to the numbers on the scoreboard, the grades, numbers on the bank account, and the numbers on the scale, right? So everything was external. So I remember when I started out as a virtual assistant, then project manager, it was such a push and pull with some of my clients who would say, planets are not aligned this week to do so and so. And I'm like, no, here, look,
Yeah.
we have those dates down. And I didn't realize that there's so much more when you go within until life literally pulled the rug from underneath me, squeezed me in the corner, held me by the throat when I took 2 trips to the ER due to burnout, and was fighting postpartum depression, raising a toddler and a newborn, and taking care of my business with my whole family across the ocean and my husband working crazy hours. And it wasn't until I started to realize that, hey, there's no coaches, there's no consultants. I have spent a fortune on trying to find people who would get into the car driver's seat and drive for me. And I was looking for those external things. I had all the funnels mapped out. I had, you name it, it had been put in place, but nothing seemed to be working.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was working, it came to the point when I actually felt called to move back overseas, to bring my family along. That did not happen. My husband decided to stay here. So the inner fight that I had within, peeling back all the layers, looking for the answers, that simply came down to the question, am I worthy enough to take my girls and follow my calling and take them to Europe without anybody's permission, without anybody's understanding? And, oh yes, go, sounds good. Everybody was like, this is crazy. Who does that? It was amazing, all the things that started to come up. And since then, all the lessons that I have learned. And a lot of times I noticed when I look back, I was like, oh, this is how I've been living my whole life. I just were not conscious of those choices. They came so natural to me.
Right.
But when I started to look inwards, of course, there's still strategies, there's still tactics, there's still the external stuff. But I think what it comes from within is that internal compass, that Northern Star that is unique to us, and that filter that we can see then, okay, I'm going this way. Whatever's crossing my path, is this in alignment? Is this going to help me get to where I'm destined to go? Or is it a distraction? Or is it something that I shouldn't even spend any time on and I'll just go around it?
Mm-hmm. I love that, because what I heard you saying, you had to be pulled through the knothole to open up, to wake up. And, as so many people who are, sharing concepts of helping others to heal, they first had to heal themselves.
Yes.
So, when you're looking for a healer, you want to look for a healer who's healed themselves or been on that path. And rather than someone who is looking for healing and trying to help others heal and heal themselves in the process, it doesn't work that way.
I think that's very true. And I think I can't remember where I saw the quote, but it said that something from our deepest wounds and greatest pains and darkest corners shines our brightest lights and greatest gifts and tenderness and love and the gifts that we get to give. When it comes to, there's always I'm fascinated by those conversations. You have to be there. You have to walk the talk in order to help somebody else. And part of my mind goes to, let's say, athletic coaches and Olympic coaches who have never been to Olympic Games by themselves.
Right.
But the teams that are coaching, the athletes that are coaching, are top ranked ones. And then, like you said, you have healers who have been looking for their own solutions, trying to offer to them, to others, and those who have healed themselves, extending their hands and helping pull others up. I think it's a very fine balance when somebody can be just a couple of steps ahead
Yes.
and can help. And sometimes when you have somebody who already has it figured out, who already has done it for themselves, I know many of those people who have no capacity, no capabilities of turning around and helping others, clueless.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish I had a more direct answer. I think in those moments, we just have to trust our instincts. You know, do we connect with the person? Do we feel the person is the right one? Beyond the fancy marketing that's being put out there and them saying all the right words.
Right.
And looking for the track record. Because sometimes the fact that they did something for themselves is not quite enough if they're unable to have a track record of clients and others who have also been helped by them.
And I think too that when someone is trying to find someone to help them, so a lot of times we discount the importance of what we're feeling when we're having that initial conversation with them. You know, how does that person make you feel? Do they make you feel like they're pushing you, like this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do? Or do you find that natural balance or that natural rhythm of, it feels really good to be sharing time with this person, to be having a conversation with this person? And so when you flow, when the conversation flows and the feelings and emotions just organically flow, you know that you're in the right presence. But if you feel that you're being pushed to something, either number one, you're not being pushed, you're just not ready, or number two, you're being pushed and they're not the right person.
Oh, totally. And I mean, I have been in both situations, and it's so funny looking back now. Quite a few people who at the time felt to be really pushy. I did take a couple of leaps out of fear of missing out, if nothing else. And the lesson was exactly what I needed to learn along the way. And saying no and walking away might have been the wrong choice at the time. And then there were people who seemed to be pushy because I was in such resistance to hearing what they had to say. And they were able to hold the space and really say what I needed to hear, even though I did not want to hear it.
Yes, yes.
And I think that happens quite often with those around us who want to keep us safe, who want to keep us happy. They will oftentimes say things and do things that they think we want as opposed to what we need.
Well, and you know, there are people that will give us advice or suggest something based on how it works for them.
Yeah.
And so this is where the knowing yourself is so important, because are you doing what's best for someone else, or are you doing what's best for you? And again, it all comes back to that inner knowing yourself. Like, what is it that you need? What is it that you need for you that's going to fill you up, to fill your soul? What is it that's going to give you that expansion of worthiness and value and love and light, rather than that feeling of being put upon or being forced to do something? And like you were saying earlier about the accountability partner, you know, being accountable to someone, that can also mean, you know, someone asks you a question like, okay, how did you love yourself today? What did you do to make time for yourself today? And then really expecting an answer. And there's no right or wrong answer, because, you know, wherever you are, it's perfectly fine. I think that's another thing too, that especially women, we need to give ourselves permission to say wherever we are, that's okay. And stop with the judgment of, oh my gosh, I only got 3 things done on my list of 10 today. Because maybe that's what you were supposed to do for the day, just those 3 things.
I love this topic, and it's so true. The fine balance, I think, between being passive and just waiting for things to happen versus standing still and allowing them to happen, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's that, oh my words today. I'm thinking about, there's a difference between disassociating, just like saying, oh, whatever, it's just going to happen. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to find that energy within you, that worthiness, that God self within you that's filling you up and lighting you up and knowing what your true source is, and that you have all of this inside of you that you could just bring out and say, oh my gosh, dear, now what do I do with this? That's what people are going to resonate with. And, I feel like that's what Maya Angelou meant when she said, people may forget what you say, but they'll never forget how
Yes,
you made them feel. Because
absolutely.
you are feeling so amazing, so wonderful, so happy, so loved, so blessed, so giving in gratitude. And that's not to say that nothing is ever going wrong in your life, not at all.
Oh
But
no, yeah.
when you're feeling that, you're exuding that and you're putting that out there, people naturally want what you have.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a mastery when, at one point, I think we have learned in a way that we are the ones who create those feelings for
Yep.
ourselves.
Yep.
And when you master that, it's not the taking a chance of waking up, "Oh, I hope today goes well. I hope today's a good day." It's no, today is going to be amazing and I already know it. And then shit happens and you're like, oh, all right. I'm loving on it. I'm giving it
Yeah.
space, but it's not affecting me for weeks to come. But
Yeah.
it's just a short moment.
Yeah.
Um, and then the beautiful part about it is that the more that we do it, it's not just doing it on the surface. We embody it, and that's when the magic starts happening. When you
Yeah.
become that, when your containers expand, when your energy increases and vibration that you're putting out there changes, it elevates, it starts magnetizing different opportunities, different people. And you might notice, which sometimes can be really sad and upsetting, when things that no longer fit, it's time to release them. And
Yes.
we want to hold on to them because, they have been such great friends for decades, or we have worked so hard for something and it's so hard to let go. But it's all part of the evolution. And the more that we trust ourselves and come back into this alignment and we're able to recognize where the North Star is, the easier it is to unhook those hooks and drop those sandbags so we can keep elevating there.
I like that you say that, finding the North Star, because to me, what I'm hearing when you say that is you keep coming back to center. You keep coming back to your alignment, and when you go too far off and then you're feeling that you veered off track, then you come back to what you're saying, your North Star. It's kind of what I call your center, the center of your being. What is it that makes you feel that worthiness? And so if there's something that you've experienced that's made you feel less than worthy or victimized, when you think about that, you'll be in that energy of, I was put upon, someone
Yeah.
did something to me. And then that energy, that feeling is what you bring up and tell yourself, this is who I am. This is what I have to remember. This is what I've gone through. And that becomes a pattern, like a pattern of habit, of feeling. There you go.
Yeah.
And so you're like, so when you're not feeling that, you feel off center. And then so your true north is that feeling of being put upon, of being victimized, of feeling lack, of feeling unhealthy. If that's your North Star, then you want to ask yourself, okay, why did I create that? And because at any given moment, you can
Exactly.
you can recreate your North Star to be that
Yes.
bright, shining light that, like, oh yeah, this is what feels better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm so happy that you brought this up. I was just talking to my husband this morning. For some reason, I woke up at 4 this morning and I got this feeling of, I'm so lonely. I was like, whoa, where did that come from?
Ah,
And I remember feeling the same thing about 3 years ago, but it came from a very different space. And it came from this victim mentality, although at the time I had no idea. And I was offended when my coach tried to suggest, maybe. I was like, no, I'm not a victim. I'm doing everything in my power, the whole 9 yards. But this morning when I woke up with that feeling, I was like, oh, it is so interesting. I wonder where is it coming from? And what am I going to do about it? And I was like, well, it's 4:00 in the morning. Right now, there's really not much I can do. But it reminded me of, what you said, that we have the power to shift. We have the power to redefine and reframe things. And I remember I knew that I overcame a specific period that really defined me and consumed me when I was rewriting my biography. And there was simply no more space for that example, for that experience. Like, oh, I guess I'm healed. Alrighty, I can leave it out and I can move on.
Yes.
But it took quite some time and a lot of work and going deeper and even deeper and even deeper and facing all the demons and having a lot of difficult conversations with myself, with my husband, with my mentors, with people around me. And the wordiness, I love how we keep coming back to this wordiness when I had to be okay, taking a stand. This is what I feel called to do. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I don't stand for. This is what served me. This doesn't serve me. I had to be okay not knowing what's going to happen on the other side. I had to be okay not knowing who will step up and continue the journey with me. And like I mentioned earlier, when I took my girls to Europe for 4 months, I had to be okay not knowing if when we came back, if my husband was still going to be there. And there's no words that I can use to describe the gratitude that I feel for him when and I even wrote about it not that long ago, when he was willing to stay still when I was a raging tornado, that he was willing to lean in when I was pulling away, when he was willing to step up and grow into the space that I created through my own expansions, and was willing to hold the mirror for me when I refused to take a look into it. And then also the one who pulled me down when I was flying way too high up. But we went through a very rocky period of time when I did not know if we were going to make it, when I was so consumed with proving my worthiness to others through, I had this tunnel vision. I said I was going to do something and I'm taking no prisoners and I have to prove that I'm a woman of my word. And I don't care what it costs me. I have to prove it. There was no greater relief than coming to this moment and through this experience. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I have nothing to prove to anybody.
Yes.
But I'm trying so hard that I'm literally like a bull in a china shop, breaking everything down just because my ego was playing such a strong role. Like, what would it be? How would it look like? How would it feel like? Embodying that next version, higher version of ourselves and tapping into vision beyond the vision. When everything that I'm trying to create so hard, what if it already is?
Yes.
Why am I so blind to seeing it? What if I allowed it to happen?
Yes.
What would then the next thing be? And everything changed.
Yes. Yes. It's interesting what you said about taking your girls to Europe for 4 months and wondering if your husband was going to be there. When I talk to women about divorce, I talk about the 3 stages: thinking about it, going through it, and putting it behind you. And I believe, and I'm going to take a really bold statement right here and say, if anyone disagrees with me, they're not being truthful with themselves. But I believe that every married woman at some point is in stage 1, thinking about divorce. Not necessarily because she wants to get divorced, but because she's thinking about the road not traveled, or what if, or what would my life be like if, or would I be more if? And when we start to have those thoughts come into our head, they scare us. Those thoughts scare us. And we're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Am I not being appreciative of my husband? Am I not being appreciative of my marriage?
Oh my
I have
God.
so much. And then we judge ourselves when actually all it is our higher self tapping us on the shoulder saying, hey, have this little conversation with yourself and take a look at why this is cropping up for you, because this is an opportunity for you to grow, and have faith that your spouse will grow with you. It doesn't necessarily mean that divorce is imminent, but when we don't give ourselves the opportunity to have that conversation and we suppress it and we stifle it, it's going to like pop out in other areas.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you brought this up. So how do your clients respond to that then? Like, are they willing to have those conversations? Are they willing to allow themselves to go there? Or are they, oh, no, I can't?
Well, it's interesting because I don't work with women of divorce specifically, but when I bring that up, the phase 1 or stage 1 of divorce, I would say 9.5 out of 10 women will admit, they'll say, well, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
They may not be willing to take that next step yet, but they say, well, yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And likewise, if we have women who have gone through a divorce and now they are scared or wondering, like, how am I going to take care of myself, and how am I going to live, and how am I going to pay for my medical insurance, and oh my gosh, they're concentrating on all the stuff they lost by being divorced rather than what they could possibly have gained by being where they are. So
Yes.
Of course we have to go back and we have to look at that phase 1, stage 1. Okay, so when you were in stage 1 and this was cropping up for you, how did you look at it? Or did you suppress it? Did you bring it out? Because perhaps divorce did happen because they brought it up and they talked about it, and then they said, oh, okay, we need to separate. But if they didn't have that conversation, you can track it back to, oh yeah, that kept coming up for me. So when we're in stage 3, putting the divorce behind us, and then we're willing to have the conversation to look back and say, oh, when I was in stage 1 thinking about it, this is how I handled it, or this is how I denied it, suppressed it, resisted it. And now I can see how that has affected stage 2, going through the divorce, and how it has affected stage 3, trying to put it behind you. Because all of it is about your self-worth. And,
Yes.
when we have something coming up for us that we want to think about or explore or understand, but we feel ashamed or guilty or maybe even too judgmental about ourselves, that we don't
Yes.
allow the conversation to take place.
Yeah.
That's when we are sweeping it under the rug, and that's when we don't know our true north.
Absolutely. And at the point, the great question is like, okay, if I'm suppressing and denying this to myself here, where else am I doing this?
Yes, because that's not the only area of your life you're doing it.
Exactly. It's across the board, and it's crazy. And it usually, like I was talking about earlier, peeling back the layers, and you think you figured something out, and oh, look, there's another layer in another area.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, the thing is that, if you're denying it or choosing to deal with it or not deal with it in that area, you're also choosing to deal with it or not deal with it in other areas of your life, like you said, because of that feeling. And as I mentioned earlier, it's like that. If your due north is, if you're always coming back to what feels right, because what feels right is that this is what I know to be sad, to be judgmental, to be cruel, to feel like I'm not worthy. This makes sense to me. So when someone comes along and says, you are wonderful, you are bright, you are loving, you are light, and then you say, nuts to you, because I don't believe that. because it's impossible for someone to tell us we are all that and more if we don't believe it ourselves. And that's why, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Always.
And if the teacher appears before the student is ready, the student will just, throw stones or turn their back, or, it's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I think that's one of the reasons too, is if you are at a point where you want to work with someone or be guided in some way, make sure that you do your own due diligence and, ask questions. And if you want to know about that person that you're tentatively going to be working with, ask questions. Say, well, how did you experience this? And then how did you get out of it? And what would be your suggestion if you were going through this? And then pay attention to how you're feeling. If you feel like that person is blowing smoke up your skirt and you're like, I don't know. Now, it could be that you feel they're blowing smoke up your skirt because you find it so hard to believe that you could actually step out of this jadedness or this unworthiness or this judgment phase that you're going through. But that's a different feeling than feeling like you're being hornswoggled, or someone's like not telling you the truth. Again, it's about what are you feeling about that person that you're talking to. We all have this gift of knowing when we're with someone. I mean, come on, everyone can think of a time when they're with someone and you think, oh, I love being around this person. They're full of energy and happiness and I just want to be around them. And then there are those people that you're around and you don't know why you don't feel good around them, but you just don't.
Yes.
And children are really good at picking up on this. And, we teach our kids, don't speak to strangers. And then when children don't speak to strangers, we admonish them because they're being rude and not speaking to strangers. But the truth is, kids will speak to someone that they feel that, that good vibration coming from. They'll say something like hi or whatever. They'll have a conversation. But if they're not feeling it, they're not going to have a conversation. In fact, they could look almost downright rude. And then what do we as parents do? We're like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed you're being rude. And then what are we teaching them? We're teaching them to go against what they innately know. And then that could be that split second where they learn a knowingness and they take it with them into adulthood. And then as adults, they're walking around thinking, why can't I just, pick out the right people instead of the wrong people? And it's like, well, let's just track it right back to that time. And this is not to blame parents. Never, never, never. Anyone who's in that space where they're blaming their parents for anything, you have not gotten to a place yet where you're ready to take 100% responsibility for where you are and the choices you make. And that is very, very important.
100%.
Just like you, when you wanted to go to Europe and take your girls, your children, you could have blamed it on your husband and said, well, you're not doing this and you're not doing that. And it's all your fault and blah, blah, blah. But the truth is you had something come up for you that you felt you needed to do. You followed through on it. And then whatever happened after that, you were willing to take 100% responsibility for it. And that is really important.
Totally. It was so interesting when I went through the journey when it comes to parenting. And one of the greatest reasons why I needed to follow it through was I was tracing back and there were 5 generations of women in my lineage that have been repeating same copy-paste patterns. And I was like, oh, shit. And I was looking at my 2 little ones like, no. It has to stop with me. It has to end here. I owe it to them. Otherwise, who knows what else is going to go on. Yeah. And those conversations, they were not easy to have. My husband did not understand it immediately. He needed time to process. But as we were having them, and even after we came back, it just allowed us to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And there was a time when I had to be super honest then also with myself. Like, okay, where am I pushing through and what am I pushing? Where is this my ego? And also I had to learn how to back off,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's another important part. Sometimes we are told to and led to believe that if we are backing off, that we're settling and giving up. But it goes back to what you're saying, trusting in North Star and being in alignment. And with the self-mastery, it comes that skill that you're like, oh no, wait, this is my ego speaking here.
Mm-hmm.
And what am I doing has nothing to do, I'm just trying to, I don't know, impress somebody or prove something to somebody. But yeah, with my two little ones watching, I was like, wow, I'm not doing it just for myself, but I'm doing it for them.
And I would be
And
willing to say that when you went back to Europe and took your daughters, you realized, you had an opportunity to realize something that you would not have realized had you not gone back, because you immersed yourself in the feelings, emotions, and situations of the generations before you. So
mhm,
you were probably more able to see that pattern or that cycle that you definitely knew, oh yeah, this is a cycle I want to break.
absolutely, absolutely. And changing and being in that space, in that energy of the environment, in the culture, immersed with my family there, provided the space that I needed to heal, provided the experience for the girls that I needed to have. Um, I'll never forget, it's a little bit off topic, but I promise it will bring it
Yes,
back.
no.
Um, my oldest was 5 at the time. And here, it's very helicopter parenting. You have to be watching your kids. You have to stand behind them in a playground. God forbid they fall down and scratch their knees. Um, so we went to Europe, and they went to the playground by themselves. And there's a beautiful thing. I miss it here in the States, actually, when you have coffee shops and they have their own play zone for the kids.
Mm.
So parents can enjoy a cup of coffee, enjoy the conversation, and the kids are off playing. Um, and going to the bathroom, we were in a restaurant, and she's like, Mom, I need to go to the bathroom. I was like, okay, let's go. And she goes, no, I can go by myself. Okay, go. There's a public restroom, go. And then she came back, and she's like, Mommy, I just need to tell you, I feel so confident and independent. I was like, oh, those are big words. What do you mean by that? And she goes, I can do all those things without you, and it makes me feel so good. And it got me thinking, like, wow, if a 5-year-old can understand that and experience that,
Mm-hmm.
what are we robbing our kids of by not even giving them a chance to have a point of reference? They just know that something's missing. And that self-worthiness, like how can you build a self-worthiness when there's this void of creating an environment where they can't even experience how competent they are, how skillful they are, how strong they actually are, and powerful they can actually be, when as parents, especially this generation, I think, are expected to clear out the path for them as opposed to prepare them for the path that lies ahead.
Well, I think sometimes too, parents can be so busy in their day-to-day life that
Yes.
in order to get all the things done on their to-do list, it's easier to tell the children, I need you to do A, B, C, D in that order. That way I know that's getting done, then I can do what's over here, rather than be in the now and pay attention to how the child needs to move through it. So again, that's how is the parent needing to move through it to get their day done.
Yeah.
And this is not me giving parenting tips, because I'm 2 generations removed from that by now, but
And there's no right or wrong answers anyway. Like,
yeah, I don't
yeah.
have any small children at home, so listen to me, don't listen to me. But I do know that when we are trying to help our kids to think, be, and make choices from what we need to get done, all we're doing is prolonging their ability to be able to do
Yeah.
that for themselves. So being able to, take a look at, like, okay, so what's going on in our life right now that this is happening, and how can I give my child that opportunity to be more independent or independent thinking, so that they're not picking up on the beliefs that, were handed down to me generationally. And, because there was a point when after I had my daughter, who is now 39, I said, oh, wait, gosh, this is when I realized, like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff that I don't know how to do. What am I going to do? How am I going to figure this out? And there was no internet back then, that you could just Google it and say, how do you? And so.
And even now, it's not always the best thing to do. How do you? It's like.
No. And then when my daughter was 19, and she had my grandson, I could already see that how I spoke to and encouraged my grandson was way different than how I spoke to and encouraged my daughters. Yeah. And then my youngest daughter has 11, 6, lower age. And so generationally, that's even different. And so, you get to a point where you say, oh, it's just about me not being so adamant about carrying on what I'm feeling in here. And we can do that if we are allowing ourselves to pay attention to what's coming up for us around our mom or grandma, or, because if it's that, oh, she doesn't understand, or she's always, when you have difficulty with your mother-daughter situation, there is something that you are carrying on to your relationship with your child about that.
I'm so happy that you're bringing this up, because you said earlier, when teacher appears, as parents, I think it's fair to say that our kids are our greatest teachers regardless.
Yes.
And every single button that they press is an opportunity for us to go inward and figure and clear things out.
Yes. I can remember my youngest daughter, she's still so good at just like doing a one-liner that makes me go, huh? And I remember I was driving in the car and she was in the back seat, and I don't remember, somebody cut me off or something. So naturally, so I was like, rah, 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 to that other driver, and just like swearing and cussing and rah, 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 telling him off, and when I finally took a breath, my daughter said, Mom, I'm the only one that can hear what you're saying. And I was like, doing. Okie dokie. Yeah, because that other person that I was throwing all that negative energy to wasn't getting that at all. Well, maybe in some way, but the person who was taking the brunt of it was my daughter. Mm-hmm. And so that was like back the truck up here, lady, and let's start thinking about this. But, again, we have to be open to what we're learning. When our teachers are put in front of us, are you willing to learn the lesson and take in the lesson or no? That's one of the things, my background is in the martial arts. And that's one of the things I love about talking about the martial arts, because our teachers can be someone younger than us, someone older than us. It doesn't matter their age. And the term sensei roughly translates to before born, meaning that their knowledge was born before we gained that knowledge. And either we're willing to take that knowledge on, or we're not, or we're ready to, or we're not. And that's what is so powerful and empowering, when we give ourselves the opportunity to step back and say, okay, if I allow myself to take in this message or to embrace this message, instead of, letting ego drive the truck there and say, oh, well, we don't, what do they know? They're 5, No, they do know.
Yes. And I think that happens a lot, to go back to your original question about the life coaching. I think that happens a lot with younger generation that comes up as a life coach. It's like, what? Like, you're only 25. What do you know about life? But like you said, there's always something that we can learn from another person, no matter where they are. They have been through something that we have not been. They have an insight that we don't, no matter the age. So,
and that generation more and more has come through without the fears and stopping beliefs, limiting beliefs that generations before them have carried with them over the years. So, you might be working with a life coach who is the millennial and have this major problem, and the millennial life coach will say to you, why do you think that's a problem? And then at your age, you're going, well, what are you, nuts? How come you don't know that this is a problem? And really what they're saying to you is like, I don't see it as a problem. And when you yourself can stand back and go, oh yeah, there are no problems. There's only lessons or opportunities. So again, we learn from everyone.
Exactly.
Sara, oh my gosh, this has been such a powerful conversation. Thank you for sharing time with me. Please tell everyone how they can follow you, get a hold of you, learn who you are, and more about what you talk about.
I live on the Facebook. So feel free to reach out to connect with me there. You can also find additional resources, video trainings, and all the fun stuff to continue this conversation on makeyourlifeyourlegacy.com. I do have a training. It's actually a free 28-minute or so masterclass. And it goes into the depths of what Nancy and I were just talking here, you know, shifting between who you are and growing, and the mindset piece, and how you, if you have a business, how that affects your business, how that affects the family life and your lifestyle. And also what I think a lot of times, the spirituality part of it, you know, those divine gifts that we sometimes are ashamed of, they feel like a curse. We were told to tuck them away, that we're weird. There's a very powerful way to bring it all in. So if that's something that you're looking for and might be interested in, there's go to my website and you can gain instant access to the training for free.
I love that. Thank you. As a matter of fact, I saw a post that you did this morning and I thought, I'm going to go check that out, because I love learning things from other people. And, you know, we're never too knowledgeable to learn something new or add to what we already know. And then I love sharing it, like, oh my gosh, I just learned this from Sara. You got to go check it out. So I highly recommend, if this is speaking to you in any way and you're thinking, should I check it out or should I not check it out? But tell them on Facebook, though, I know you're Sara O. So spell your name for them, please.
Sara, Sara, Oblak, Oblak, and Speicher, Speicher. That one took me forever to remember.
And of course, that will be right on the video link here. But, you know, just in case, I just want to know how to get a hold of Sara. So again, Sara, thank you for your amazing energy, your insight, your awesomeness. Thank you for sharing this conversation with me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Bye. And for all of you listening or watching, however you are tuning in to this conversation, if something here has resonated with you, subscribe to our channel, because that is the whole point of my Life is All About Choices YouTube channel. I always want to give you inspiring conversations. So if you're having one of those days where you're thinking, man, I need to lift up my energy and I just don't know how to do it, and you're browsing on YouTube and you're trying to think of what you could do to lift you up, go check out the conversations and just pay attention to which one speaks to you and say, oh, maybe I'll pay attention to this one, and then share it. Let people know. Leave comments for us. Let us know what you got from this conversation, because this helps us, again, turn around and help the clients that we're working with. So we truly, truly appreciate your comments, your feedback, your subscribing, and just letting us know how we can be of service to you. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, just let me know. Again, my name is Nancy Mueller, the one and only Life Sensei, reminding you, life is all about choices. Ciao for now.